Are you in banking or the financial services sector, and you're looking to identify a tech skill that you can learn that you will be able to easily transfer to your current profession and transform your resume? Stay tuned, stick around. You're going to learn just that and more right here in this segment of Power of the BI. Welcome back to another Power of Money Monday. That's right, welcome back to another Power of Money Monday. So here's the deal. Today we are going to be talking, we're talking about money. What better could we be talking about, or what better industry could you talk about? We're talking about money other than the financial services industry. So today we are going to be talking money. The company that we're going to be using as in our simulation is going to be Citibank. It's going to be Citibank. In some instances, you can consider it to be Citi Group, but we're going to be talking more so Citibank, because Citi Group is a whole conglomerate of a whole lot of other stuff. But today we're going to be talking specifically banking. What I want you to understand first is this: I do not work for Citibank. This is not a sponsored segment by Citibank. Now, if Citibank wants to sponsor this segment, that's cool too. But this is not a sponsored segment by Citibank. I do not work for Citibank. I do not own stock in Citibank. I don't think that any of the contracts I've worked or am working are Citibank contracts. Okay. So with that said, I don't think I've ever worked for a company that I contracted for Citibank. I have done some contracting for banking, but I'm not sure, and I don't think that any of those banks have been Citibank. The reason why I chose Citibank is because Citibank is what? A Fortune 500 company, and this is what? Power Money Monday. So I like to use Fortune 500 companies so that it'll be easier for you to be able to identify, the type of company, the type of business, the type of industry that we're really getting into, that we're really talking about. So with that said, we are going to get busy. We're going to move right into learning Power BI using Citibank as a simulation, and as we build out a Power BI report here today on Power Money Monday. So we are now over in the investor relations side of our research. Basically, how we got to the investor relations is we went over to Citi, we went over to the home tab, went to investor relations, and we found the investor information. Now, with that said, again, I want to clarify that I don't think that I own any Citi stock. I don't think that I own any Citi stock. I could, but I don't think that I do. This is not a sponsored segment. This is not a sponsored segment sponsored by Citi. I am simply only using Citi as a simulation of a banking and or financial services institution to show you how to create a Power BI report, and we're using the Citi website and using the Citi investor relations in order to show you how to research information before you actually kick off building your Power BI report. Of course, you would go into your database sooner or later and then pull in those tables and that kind of stuff. But doing the research on the website, doing the research on the investor relations allows you to have some insight as to, what type of tables you want to bring in from the database in order to build out the data sets within your Power BI report. So as we see here, we are over on the investor relations. The way you get here again is you would go over to the homepage at citigroup.com and then go over to investor relations. Now, here's the deal. There are two types of reports that we use that we use in order to research a company. One report is the 10Q, one report is the 10K. The 10Q is a quarterly report. Typically, a year is broken up into 4 quarters. Typically, the year starts at the beginning of the year, which will be January to December, and it would be broken up into 4 quarters: January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Those will be the 4 quarters. I believe that companies do have the prerogative, if they wanted, to have their quarters broken up starting at different times as opposed to just starting at the beginning of the year. We're going to use the beginning of the year as our example. So when I say quarters, we would be talking about first quarter is January, February, March, second quarter is April, May, June, third quarter is July, August, September, and fourth quarter will be October, November, December. That's how we're going to be visualizing the quarters within building our Power BI and doing our research. Okay. Now, again, I don't think that I own any stock in Citi. This is not a Citi sponsor segment. Citi, if you're out there listening and you want to be a sponsor of Power of the BI, you are more than welcome to do so. Please reach out to us and we will definitely do you a great service in a sponsor segment here at Power of the BI. Just throwing that out there. Just throwing that out there. I didn't get paid to say that. I'm just throwing that out there. Now, with that said, the website that we use to research Citi is Citi's actual website. The investor relations information that we're going to be going through here very quickly is the actual Citi's investor relations information. We just went over to the website and then we went over to the tab on investor relations and just said, hey, we want to see, what is Citi saying what is Citi saying, conveying message that they're saying to the investor. There are two reports that we typically research. One is the 10Q, the other is the 10K. Again, I just said the 10Q is a quarterly report. The 10K is an annual report. That means that we are researching the information throughout the entire year for that organization, and this particular organization is Citi. The 10Q is a quarterly report, so every quarter we'll have a report. First quarter has a report, second quarter has a report, third quarter has a report. The fourth quarter would be the annual report. That would be the 10K, the 10Q and the 10K. Now, with that said, the 10Q, I don't think that the 10Q, so these reports are filings that are provided to the SEC. I don't think that these reports, I don't think that the quarterly reports have to be audited by outside independent auditors. I do believe that the 10K, which is the annual report, has to be audited by an outside independent auditor. The 10Q, I don't believe that the 10Q has to be as stringent and as detailed as the annual report. The annual report has to be by the book, boom, 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 boom. These are all the things that are required from the SEC. These are all the things you require. These are all the things we're providing to you as far as the organization, again, the organization being Citi, and the SEC has, that filing on record and able to provide that to investors as needed, I believe. Never worked for Citi or on Wall Street, but I think that's how that works. So we're not going to go too in detail here. Of course, when we're talking about a banking or financial services organization, definitely, the first thing we think about is numbers. We're thinking about the dollars. We're thinking pretty much dollars, right? But these guys, their business is not just dollars. You got to understand, every business is in business to make money, but there has to be a product involved. There has to be a product and there has to be a service involved in order for it to be considered to be a business. In order for it to be considered to be a business. I don't have that definition written down anywhere. I didn't read that definition anywhere. That's just a definition I made up. A business has in order to be a business, you have to have either a product or a service to offer in exchange for something. And I'm going to call that something currency, U.S. currency. Not necessarily U.S. currency, but it has to be a product or a service. That's just my definition. Okay. Now, with that said, as we look through this report, I'm not sure if this is the actual quarterly financial. So this is actually saying here that this is the quarterly financial data. So, and it's really just a supplement. It's not even I don't believe this is the actual quarterly report that's provided to the SEC. It's a quarterly financial data supplement. I don't know if that's the same thing or not, but basically it is some form of research that we're able to use. Okay. And what we're going to get out of this is, what does Citi want to provide to the investors? What's important for the investors to know about Citi? So as we see here, we see that Citi has services, markets, banking, wealth, U.S. personal banking, and then there's all other legacy franchises, corporate. So I'm just skimming through here. We're not going to read this information. We're not going to read this like a book. We're going through here and seeing what's important. So I see that there's services, markets, banking, and wealth. Where is this information? Is this information that you need to see that I need to create inside of the Power BI report? That's one of the questions that you would be asking to the organization or to the representation, to the business analyst. To the business analyst as you are meeting with these guys in order to get documentation as further research get further one-on-one research to see what exactly are these guys looking from you. We've got the Citi financial summary here. And again, we're not going to go too in depth, too in detail as to all of this, the financial statements. We can create financial statements using Power BI. In this particular case, we're not going to be creating financial statements, but using Power BI to create financial statements definitely makes the accounting and finance department a lot more automated. That's a whole nother conversation. We're going to look at doing something like that here in the near future. We're just not going to look at doing that here right now. So we're just scrolling through and we are just trying to see what are some of the things that are here inside of this report that we may want to try to sniff out to see if that's information that we want to use inside our Power BI report. So basically, if it was me, I would take this information. I'm looking under revenues, net interest, and expenses. And again, I see services, markets, banking, wealth, U.S. personal banking. And this is the second time I've seen this information. So basically, I know now that I need to ask the question, where is this information inside of the database? And is this information that you want to see or the organization wants to see on a Power BI report via Power BI visualizations? Again, we're just skimming through. We're not trying to get too in depth, too detailed as to what is here. We do know that this is more of the financial documents, financial statements, but we can look over into the descriptions and see, how are these guys making money? Where are the different segments at? Where are the different markets at? What products are they making money with? And the reason why that makes sense, why that not necessarily makes sense, but why is that important is because if they're making money with something, if there's a product there, we are probably almost certain that they want to see those products somewhere, those services somewhere in a visualization on the Power BI report. So that's what we are using here. Again, I'm not going to go too much more in depth when it comes to the financial documents, financial statements, because we're only trying to sniff out information or sniff out pertinent information that we may want to bring in from a database to include it as part of the data set in our Power BI report. So with that said, we are going to jump over to the stock information. So we are over here in the finance section of Yahoo Finance looking at Citi Group. Now, looking at, I know that the data that we're looking for overall, or the report that we're creating, is for Citibank. It's going to be banking or financial institutional data. But the parent company for Citibank, I believe, is Citi Group. And that ticker is C, as we can see here. So at the end of the day, if we're not able to research the entity that we're looking for, or that we're building the Power BI report for, what we would be doing is, seeing overall, what is the company about? Who is the company? What is the company about? And we know that the overall company here is Citi Group Inc. Again, let me be very careful. Let me help you to understand, reemphasize that I don't believe that I own any Citi stock. I could own some stock inside of one of my mutual funds or one of a couple of portfolios. Not that I have a whole lot of stock or a whole lot of portfolios, and I don't want to make it seem as such. I just want to make sure that you understand that this segment is not produced, is not sponsored by Citi Group in any way. This is just a report that I will be creating using a like entity such as Citi, and I will be building the Power BI report just in that nature, just because I'm looking to create a report to simulate a financial services business or banking industry. So with that said, I just want to make sure that that's super clear. So we are here over in the on the Power BI report. And now what we're going to do is go through the actual creating the Power BI report for Citibank or Citi Group. however you want to call it. Of course, remember that this, again, is not the actual Citi data set. These are not actually actual Citi data sets that we're using, but they're very similar. Myself and the team have created data sets very similar to data that would be used in a financial services industry business, banking business. So as you can see here, we've got accounts, got a table called accounts, branches, cards, credit scores, customer feedback, customers, employees. And basically what I'm doing here now is we've brought the data in. Other tables that we have are loans, products, and transactions, all tables that would be used within a banking or financial services industry. So initially what I did here was take apart, deleted the relationships. So as we brought the tables in, of course, Power BI is pretty smart now. It used to didn't be that smart when it first came out, but it's pretty smart now that it builds relationships, or sometimes it builds the relationships or connects the relationships from table to table. But it does not happen all the time. So when you bring your data sets in, when you bring your tables in, it's not guaranteed that those tables will have relationships already built or already connected. So what I want to do was come in and build this Power BI report from scratch, so that you don't get into the habit, or you don't think that it is automatic that the relationships are already built or already connected. Now, with that said, even with those relationships already built, something that I also want to emphasize is that just because those relationships have been smartly connected by Power BI does not mean that those relationships are correct. It does not mean that the relationships are correct. It just means that those are tables that it seems as if the information, the data within those tables are tables that have relationships. I'm looking at the branches, and it looks like when we brought branches in, the branch table was not set to where the headers are correct. So it seems as if the headers are part of the columns: branch name, city, region, manager name. Seems like those should be headers as opposed to being rows in the column. So we're going to come back in and we're going to transform that data, and we're going to use first row as header. We're going to transform that to be first row as header, so that that column would be given, each one of those columns would be given a header title, as opposed to those headers being part of the columns and just having header names as column 1 and column 2 and column 3, column 4. Now, again, Power BI automatically connects the headers, the tables, sometimes according to the headers within the tables. But what we've done is we've come in and we have removed all of the relationships that were automatically created by Power BI, and we are going to build our own relationships, make our own relationships. And of course, depending on the headers and the IDs of the tables, there could be more than one way to build the relationships, and sometimes there's only one primary table, and then all of the other foreign tables or foreign keys are able to be created based on additional keys within other tables. I'm not going to go too deep into that. We can talk about that in class, but as we are looking here, what I'm trying to do is identify which of these tables would probably be the primary table with the primary key, and then have foreign keys associated with it. Currently, I am using the customer table as the primary table. And of course, you already know that when I select a primary table, I like to use that table as the center of my star schema. You already know that Power BI is built on the star schema, where the relationships, the models within Power BI are built on the star schema. So what I'm doing now is selecting my primary table to be customers, and hopefully we don't have any issues, and each one of the tables would have a customer ID. so that we could build a relationship for each one of those tables. Looking at transactions, and I am now seeing that there is not a customer ID header or column header in the transactions table. So I'm now just trying to figure out, which one of these tables have customer ID to where I can build the relationships for these tables. Going over to branches, and I see branches, I can build a relationship between the branch table and the employees table using the branch ID. So we have branch ID as the relationship between branches and employee ID, which gives it a one-to-many relationship as the customer being built relationship between credit scores. We can see that that's going to give us a one-to-many relationship. Customer to customer feedback gives us a one-to-many relationship, and customer to loans gives us a one-to-many relationship. We also already know that using Power BI and building out the relationships that we prefer for our relationships to be either one-to-many, many-to-one, or one-to-one. We don't really like the many-to-many relationship. You can have a many-to-many relationship, but we typically try to stay away from many-to-many relationships because it takes some other justifications and clarifications as to why you are using a many-to-many. So we kind of try to stay away from the many-to-many relationship. But with the branches to employees, there is a one-to-one, there's a one-to-many relationship. With customers to loans, customers to credit scores, and customers to customer feedback. All of those gives us a one-to-many relationship. Accounts, it appears we do have customer ID in the accounts. We've got accounts right now related to cards, and it's based on account ID. So there is a one-to-many relationship there in the accounts to cards table as well. We also see that using accounts, we can build a relationship from accounts to transactions, and that gives us a one-to-many relationship. We have in the products, we have product ID. We do not have customer related to products, but we have product ID, and let's see, we've got branches, employees. It doesn't look like we have products, so we will probably not be doing a whole lot with the products table, given that it does not look like product in this particular scenario has another table in which we can build a relationship of product ID or product ID to product ID using the products table. So, oftentimes I often look over and miss something. So I'm just going to move products out the way for a little while and go to the other tables and begin to work. And typically, if there is a product ID within any of the other tables, we'll find that haphazardly as we move through building out the relationships for the tables that do have relationships. But I can understand why products may not be part of the relationships that we want to build right now as a sample. And it could be the reason why, as myself and the team were creating the data sets, that we didn't go too deep into products, because products could be a whole lot of things, right? You can have products could be associated with the transactions. Products could be associated with the loans, and then it could be several, it could be hundreds of different products. It could be, when we're talking about financial services and banking industry businesses, we often think of product as being loan, but it could be credit cards. It could be several different types of credit cards that are associated with it. It could be several different sub-type credit cards that could have A, B, C credit, tiers of credit. There could be many. There could be hundreds of different products. And when trying to build out a dashboard for a an organization, let's just say a financial services organization, since that's the type of organization that we are speaking of right now, we could spend days just building out the Power BI visualizations just on products itself. So that could be the reason why we did not come up with much detail when it comes to product. Not necessarily sure, don't remember why, but we do have enough information to build out a very good Power BI dashboard with some pretty good visualizations. So we're not going to let that hinder us. But if you were in a situation and you did have a report that you were building that required products, that is a question that you may want to ask the person or your team lead, your business analyst, liaison. How detailed do they want to get into products? I do know in many cases, if an organization does have products, they probably do want to have visualizations on products. Let's see here. So we're coming back over, just reviewing what we have in the products table, just to make sure that we're not overlooking something that we may need when it comes to the products. It does not appear so. It does not appear that there are any other IDs, any foreign keys, any foreign keys that may be associated with the product table that we currently have. So we're just going to keep moving right along. We see here in the customers table, customer is related to the accounts table by the customer ID. So as we saw before, we've got credit scores, loans, customer feedback, accounts, all associated to or related to the customer table by customer ID. And transactions is related to the accounts table by account ID. And accounts is associated with or related to the cards table by account ID. So it currently looks like the accounts table could be at the center of the star schema. I would be probably more inclined to believe that the center of the star schema probably should be the customers table, given that this is a business built on customers and not a business built on accounts. But if you were talking to a professional within the industry of financial services or banking, they may differ slightly from what I just said and may say, no, the center of the star probably should be based on accounts, because we look at accounts and not at customers. So here we are over in the report view, and in the report view, what we are going to be doing is reviewing each one of our tables and reviewing the columns and the column headers in each table to see that if they have the correct data types or what we believe them to have the correct data type. Here we're in the accounts table. In the accounts table, we have account ID, which is going to be a text data type, the customer ID, which is going to be a text data type, the account type, which is going to be a text data type, open date is going to be a date data type, and status is going to be a text data type. So here in the branches table, we see that we've got branch ID. Branch ID is going to be a text data type. Branch name is going to be a text data type. City is going to be text data type. Region is going to be text data type, and manager name is going to be text data type. So it is very important that we go through each one of our tables to make sure that we understand what is in each column. And by understanding what is in each column, we understand what data type should be in each column. And as we go through here in the cards table, we see that card ID is a text data type, account ID is a text data type, card type is a text data type, the date is issue date is going to be a date data type, and the expiry date is going to be a date data type. Now, the reason why card ID and account ID, or pretty much any ID, is going to be text data type, well, that's kind of tricky, not necessarily, but the reason why is because, the ID columns normally are numbers. They're normally numbers. But if we make those decimal or numeric values, when we go in to create our visualizations, those visualizations are going to sum that particular column, or they're going to aggregate the column. It could sum, it could multiply, it could divide the column. We don't want the ID columns, even though they may be numbers, to be added together. In this particular case, we did not use numbers because we didn't want to confuse you. But just understand that when you are working in real world, the IDs, foreign keys and primary keys and foreign keys typically are numbers. And you want to make sure that those are text data type instead of numerical values. So here in credit scores, we've got score value is a number because we want to aggregate this sooner or later in a visualization. Credit score ID and customer ID are text data type, and the dates would be a date data type. Coming down and looking at customer feedback, again, the feedback key or the feedback ID is going to be a text data type. The customer ID is going to be a text data type. Here at comments is going to be text data type, and that only makes sense because it's actually text written out. The date submitted is going to be a date data type, which means it is associated with a calendar date, and the ratings will be a numerical value because when we're building out our visualizations inside the Power BI report, we will want to be able to, we don't have to use this column, but we will want to be able to aggregate this column, finding the total number, the total value of the credit score or the average value of the credit score or what have you. Customers, we come down to customer ID. Customer ID is going to be text data type. Full name is going to be text data type. Join date is going to be a date data type. We've got reason, segment, and full name, and those all will be text data type. When we go over to Power Query to check our Power Query against our report view here, we will be able to see, we'll be able to confirm whether or not it's text, numeric value, or if it's text, numeric value, or date data type, because in the Power Query in the top left corner of the header, you will see it will have ABC next to the header name. ABC means that it is a text. If you see 1, 2, 3, that means that it's a whole number. If you see 1.2, that means that column is going to be a decimal. And if you see a calendar looking figure in the top left corner in Power Query, it will be a date data type. Coming back over, checking against the branches and the employee column, we see that we confirm here that branches and employees are all related by branch ID. And that's how we made the relationship or built the relationship in our model view. So here in the report view, we're just confirming that our report view here with our branches and our employees are actually correctly related. Reason why, that really jumps out there at me, because we didn't put a lot of relationships between employee table and the branch table. So we do see that we do have a relationship between those two tables. So we may be able to build out a good amount of visualizations in our Power BI report if that's what we choose to do. Again, we've got a lot of information as is being tied out and related to the customer table, so we may or may not get into the branch information. Going down to the loans table and checking to see what are the data types for each one of these headers. Loan ID is a text data type. Customer ID is a text data type. Loan amount is going to be a decimal data type because we look at dollar amounts as decimals. Loan type is going to be a text data type, and issue date is going to be a date data type. So as we can see, anything that has date in it is probably going to be a date data type. Don't let that fool you. Rather than having date, it could say issue, and issue. When you look inside the column, you'll see that all the issue rows could be related to a date. That would make that a date data type. Just because it has issue date in the header does not mean what gives it its value is what is actually in the column. And in the column we have dates. So as we see here, customer ID, customer appears to be, to me, the center of the star schema. Again, when we are speaking with loan professionals, it could be that they actually like to look at the center of the star schema as the account. And products, we don't have a whole lot about products. We didn't do a whole lot with products. Products actually didn't have any tables that it is related to here. And as we saw in the model view, so we probably will not be doing a whole lot with products, but it does not mean you won't have products in on your actual job, on your actual project. If you do, typically products is something that a customer really does want to see and have visualizations for it. So that's a question you may want to have if you were in this particular situation and your products didn't have anything related to it or any tables related to it. You would probably want to ask, hey, what tables should we be looking for to relate the products table to? But again, given that most customers that have products, they will want to see the product information in the Power BI report and the Power BI visualizations. You will probably have that data from the very beginning. But if not, again, that is a question you want to ask. Let's go over to the Power Query, and now we want to check our report view against our Power Query to double check to make sure that each one of our tables have the headers that have the data types in each one of the headers. So here in the card view, we see cards going across the headers. We see the text. We see calendars associated with the columns that have the little calendar figure. Coming down to the customers table, again, we see the text. The text is going to show you ABC, which is text, and the calendar figure is going to tell you that it's a data type. And if it is a whole number, it's going to have 1, 2, 3 in the top left corner. And if it's a decimal, or probably what we're using for the dollar amounts, it's going to have 1.2. And it looks like all of those areas, all of those headers are correct. So let's jump over here and let's take a look at the Power BI report. We've already built out the model view. We've checked that against the report view, and we checked the report view against the Power Query. So now we're over in Power BI, because now over in the report view, we checked the model view against the data view, and then we checked the Power Query against the data view. Now we're over in the report view, because we can build out reports now, given that all of our relationships that we've created should all be, it appears that all our relationships are built out correctly. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come over and we're going to start building out visualizations in the in the report view. Now, of course, you already know that when I build out a Power BI report, the first visualization that I like to build is a table view, is a table visualization. It is no rhyme or reason behind it. It just makes me feel comfortable having a visualization on the report page. So when I when I start building out a report, I want to have a visualization on the report page so that I can get some idea. Well, feel comfortable and that I'm starting to build a report, and two, to give me some sense of layout, real estate of where the visualizations will be. So, of course, I started with the table. I started out building out a table. Now I'm bringing in a card where I did a count of customer IDs count of the customer IDs, which would, at the end of the day, would be a count of the customers in the customer table. So here we are bringing in another visualization, and we are just trying to see, see how this visualization is interacting with the card, interacting with the table. This visualization is a slicer that I brought in. This slicer is the slicer for the actual region, for the different regions that we have here. And those regions are APAC, EMEA, and North America. I'm going to bring in another slicer. And for this particular slicer one, I want to make sure, well, not make sure, I kind of want to make it to be the same height as the current slicer. So this slicer here is the slicer that I brought in for segments. So now we can slice this visualization by region. We can slice it by segment. When I say slice, I used to get confused when the instructor that I had in class when I was learning how to build out visualizations would say slice. Slice just means that you can look at it from different viewpoints. We can look at this this report currently from a region's viewpoint. We can select the regions and see how many customers we have in a region. And then we can look at it from a segment standpoint. We can see how many customers we have in a segment. So here in the segments that we have in this report, by the way, is our corporate, retail, and wealth customers. Those are different segments that you would probably see within a financial services, a banking industry Power BI report, or used within their industry for visualizations. So here we are bringing in a visualization, a clustered column chart visualization, and we are using the loan amount. The loan type we're finding across the x-axis, and the loan amount we're finding across the y-axis. And we're able to slice this visualization by region, which means we can look at it by region, we can look at it by segment, but rather than saying look at it, we're saying we can slice it by. So from this point on, I will start saying slice by rather than look at by. Just understand that both of those are pretty much the same thing. Just testing here. We can slice by region, we can slice by segment, we can slice by region and then segment. And here we're looking at North America and retail, but we could look at, what is that? Is that APAC and retail, APAC and corporate, APAC and health? We actually can hold down the key if we wanted to in region and say we want to look at EMEA and North America at the same time. We could do that. We could hold down the control key and we could look at EMEA, North America, retail, and then hold down the key, the control key, and look at retail and wealth all at the same time. Now, only thing I'm doing here is I'm just going through and I'm just trying to get an idea of real estate. Because at this point, we know that the model is built correctly. We know that the headers have the right data types associated with them. So now building out the visualizations, is several things that come with building out the visualizations. One is making sure that the visualizations are in areas to where it looks good, aesthetically pleasing to the user that will be using the Power BI report. Two, to make sure that it's not jumbled up and we have too much information within the Power BI report. I tend to like to have 6 to maybe 8 visualizations on a page, but every time I say that, I find more information that I would bring in, which makes it a little bit more challenging for me. For instance, if I have 10, 12 visualizations on a report, it makes it a little bit more challenging for me to make the real estate a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to the untrained eye. So that's what I try to do. I try to keep it within 6 to 8 visuals, but I have a feeling, given the amount of data that's here in this particular report, because when we're looking at a organization in the banking and financial services industry, they have a lot of information. They have a lot of data. More often than not, you can have several pages within a Power BI report. I'm not trying to build more than one page as we are building out this Power BI report here. But just understand that you could have several pages of a Power BI report so that you don't have to have all the information all on one page. You could have one page that is main screen information. The next page could be branch information. The next page could be customer information. So just understand you're not going to be held to just having one page within a Power BI report. I think having an optimal amount of pages within a Power BI report is about 3. I try not to do more than 5. There's several different tricks that you can use within a Power BI report to where you can have all of that information on the same page, but you don't have to show that information at the same time. You can click buttons and be able to hide information and show information that you want to see at a particular time. We're not going to go too deep into that in this particular class, because what I want you to see here is that you can create Power BI reports, not necessarily being a person with a tech degree or a computer science degree or an MBA, understanding the numbers. That's the primary purpose of this class. You can be a Power BI developer with the knowledge that you have and transfer the skills that you have currently over to what you transfer the knowledge you currently have into a tech skill, being creating and developing Power BI reports. So I've brought in several visualizations here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now we currently have 8 visualizations, and I know that these 8 visualizations is not what I'm going to be, what I would want to create as a final product. So saying that I'm only going to go with 6 to 8 visuals is probably not going to be accurate in this particular case, because we currently have a card showing the count of customer ID. We've got region, the region slicer, the segment slicer. We've got a table. Not sure I'm going to use this table though. We've got a cluster column chart here with the amount of transaction type, cluster column chart with the loan type. Probably make one of these guys a bar chart rather than having 2 cluster column charts there. We've got a table that I typically don't keep tables in my Power BI reports, but given that we're talking about a banking and financial services industry, they deal with a lot of tables. So it may make sense to keep a table visualization in this particular report. And then we've got a tree map that shows the count of customers by region. So we've got quite a bit of information that's being shown here. And then I just brought in a pie chart, and in this pie chart we're looking at account types. Let's see, and we've got to determine what we want to see account types by. But let me count: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're still dealing with somewhere close to 8 visualizations, currently 8 visualizations in this particular report. When creating the pie chart, it's kind of you kind of have to think this thing through as the information, as the what type of information you want to see in the pie chart, because, depending on how much data you have, you may need to create a measure to limit the amount of data that you're going to bring in, or you can actually probably maybe even think through that information. But right now, rather than using the pie chart for the visualization, I'm going to bring in the clustered bar chart for that information. Again, remember that a bar chart goes sideways, it goes horizontal, okay, because you can set a glass of wine on top of the bar, and a column chart goes vertical because you can set a roof on, or a wall, or not a roof, but a ceiling on a column. So that's the difference between a clustered column chart and a clustered bar chart. So I am going to take out several of these visuals and replace them with some new visuals. And these visuals being what we see here. I'm going to keep the table in, go with the pie chart and the count of customers. the slicer for score value and slicer for score agency. I am going to keep those slicers in, create some new measures so that we can get some calculations or create some visualizations for specific types of visualizations. Let's see here. We got score range. So we got score range 100 to 399, 400 to 599, 600 to 749, 750 to 850. We're going to keep the pie chart to make it a little smaller so that we can increase the real estate that we have to work with. As I said, I like to keep visualizations on the Power BI report somewhere around 6 to 8 visuals, but of course, as you saw before, this can really get out of hand with the amount of good information, good data that we are able to use using the banking and or financial services industry data. Going to bring in the bar chart again. Of course, bar charts, clustered bar charts, clustered column charts are pretty much some of my favorite visualizations. I like to use the pie chart, I like to use the donut chart, but the bar and the clustered column, I found myself using more often than not when building out Power BI reports. We're in the phase now of the real estate, trying to make sure that the visualizations are not too small but not too large, but making sure that we can get the right types of visualizations on the page. Just mentioned the clustered column, clustered bar are probably two of my favorite, or probably my two favorite visualizations when it comes to a Power BI report. Got some measures, some custom measures that I want to create in order to utilize these visualizations to get the best use out of them. One thing about creating measures, when you create your measures and you have, I think the issue that I had here, the problem was that I had it listed as credit score rather than credit scores. The title of the header of the table has to be the exact table name. The header has to be the exact header name or column name, however you want to call it. Of course, the name of the measure does not have to have a specific name, but it all works. It all works to the good. So of course here we're looking at, again, looking at clustered column information. And one more time for clarification, for those who, if you are not familiar with clustered column or not able to tell the difference, or what's the difference between a bar chart and a column chart, because they both are bars and they really have a column. If you look at clustered bar, they're stacked on top of each other. But the difference is the clustered column chart or a column chart is going to be columns side by side, right? As we see here, clustered columns they're columns side by side. Columns side by side. They're going up vertically. The vertical visualization is going to be the column chart, and the horizontal visualization that looks just like the column chart, but it's turned sideways, it's going horizontally, that is going to be the bar chart. I like to think of it as if the column chart, a column holds up a roof, it holds up a ceiling, and a bar chart, a bar holds up a glass of wine or a glass of soda. I don't necessarily want to say any specific type of soda, but it holds up, you can set a glass of soda or a glass of water on top of a bar. So here we are again. We're down to, not necessarily down to, but we're at the point where we are. Here we are just making sure that the visualizations are interacting with one another. We believe that they all are interacting with one another. We're checking again the data view, seeing that the data that's in the data view all fall under some specific type of data type. We can double check our model view to make sure that our models, our relationships are built correctly. We do believe our models are built correctly. As you saw, I have updated the model view to where you can more clearly identify the center of the star schema. I like to have tables, the center table at the center of the star schema. Again, the products table is not necessarily going to be utilized too much, but as you can see, the customers table, I've identified the customers table as being the table that has a relationship with the other four tables. The other four primary tables, I believe we do have either 6 or 7 tables, but the 4 primary tables that are all related by customer ID are attached to or related to the customer ID column via the customer field. So that's allowing us to create the center of the star schema. I added some additional data, so I'm going to refresh the report so that the report can include all of the data. Initially, I only had 50 records, 50 customer records. I think I went back and included either 1,000 or 2,000. It looks like it's 1,000 customer records, just so we have more data to work with. It's not necessarily anything that's going to make it any better, but it just gives us more data to work with. Gives us more visualizations, not necessarily visualizations, but it allows us to see the visualizations in ways we're not able to see it with 50 records. So I included 1,000 records instead of 50 records. So I refreshed the Power BI report to indicate as such. Again, just seeing how the visualizations are interacting with one another, account type, category, and of course, if you click one of the bars, we're hoping that it's interacting with the slicer. We're going to bring in, appears to be another slicer, and in this slicer, we're going to bring in status so we can see the status, and the status is going to be, I believe it's loans, the status of the loans, or the status of the accounts maybe. So the status is active, closed, and suspended, and then we've got the score agent. We've got our previous slicer, which was score agency, and another slicer, which was score range. So now we can slice by score range, we can slice by status, we can slice by score agency. So of course, as you look at the pie chart is going to go to a solid color if we select a agency, because the pie chart is the average of the score by agency. So it's going to directly affect one specific agency. So if we select score agency, it's going to make that pie chart not show all of the agencies, but just a specific agency that was selected. And then we can slice even more by looking at the score range or average score range by agency. Here we can go to, we're slicing by region. In many cases, I don't like to have the same visualization, such as a slicer, have it appear more than 1 or 2 times. Well, I'm not going to say that, because I have used slicers to where I've used a drop-down slicer, but I don't necessarily use the list slicer as we're seeing here with several different values in each list. But again, when we're talking about a bank or a financial service industry, this is information that these guys use all the time in order to look certain things up. So, I will probably, not totally sure, but I will probably leave these slicers in here as list slicers so that we can just select the value in each slicer and then see how that value is affecting or interacting with the other visualizations. Before we go too much further into the video, what I want to do is ask you to go over to my website, powerofthebi.com, and sign up for my free webinar. That's right, I said my free webinar, where I walk you through the ins and outs of what it takes to learn the tech skills of Power BI. So here's the deal. Go to the website, sign up for my free webinar, Power of the BI, where I will walk you through learning the tech skills of Power BI. If you find that it's something that you're interested in, of course, I'm going to ask you to sign up for the class, Power of the BI. If you find that it's something that you're not interested in, that's okay too. There are many tech skills out there that you may want to pick up and learn and use your transferable skills to move ahead in your career, and I encourage you to do that as well. However, you are still welcome to come back over to our YouTube channel, Power of the BI, and learn as much as you can about Power BI. Learn as much as you can about Power BI. Send me messages, send me texts, send me comments within the comments, and I will definitely get back to you. But anyway, once again, go over to my website, sign up for my free webinar, sign up for my free webinar, where I'll be walking you through the skill set of learning Power BI. And again, if you're not interested in signing up for the class at this time, that's totally okay. It's not going to be any hard sell. Now, back to the video. So we are here moving along as we move through creating the Power BI report. We've got several visualizations here on the Power BI report, just bringing in the donut chart. As you can see, we also have the pie chart. Of course, I like to use the pie chart. I like to use the donut chart. I like to use the clustered column chart, and I like to use the clustered bar chart. I very seldom would keep the table visualization in my Power BI reports. But in this particular case, given that we are using, we're simulating that of a banking or financial services institution, I am going to keep the table in at this point. It may take it out a little later, not necessarily sure, but I do know that banking and financial services organizations use the table visualizations quite often. So I like to try to replicate some of the things that they use, and this is definitely one. Another thing that these organizations use, they use a lot of slicers. They like to see visualizations by different visual types. I kind of struggle with really trying to explain that, but I don't use a lot of list slicers in my visualizations, in my Power BI reports, and definitely not multiple list slicers within the Power BI report. But in this particular case, again, this is something that is very common in the business, not in the business, but in the banking and financial services institutions, to where they do slice by several different visualizations. Therefore, I'm keeping at this point, I'm keeping the visualizations, the multiple list slicers into visualizations in the Power BI report. What does that mean? We've got a list slicer. Score range has a list: 100 to 399, 400 to 599, 600 to 749, and 750 to 850. That's a list. Score agency has Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. That is a list of score agencies. Segment slicer has corporate, retail, and wealth. That is a list of segments. The region slicer has APAC, EMEA, and North America. That is a list within the regions. Then we have status, have active, closed, and suspended. That is a list. So what I'm saying is, typically I don't create a lot of list slicers within my report. Many times I'll create multiple slicers, but it'll be a drop-down slicer. In this case, this allows the user that's using the report to be able to point and click click which area that they would like to select. Very similar to the drop down, to where you could just select from the drop down, but in this particular case, you can just put in a check mark, and then it's going to show you what you are visualizing in the visualizations. Again, very common in the banking and financial services industries. Therefore, I like to try to keep my visualizations on the Power BI report as similar to the industry that we're using as possible. Now, here's the deal. One thing we have to remember is, as Power BI developers, we are we're kind of on the edge of being graphic designers and data engineers and data analysts. Of course, we are data analysts, but we're on the edge of being graphic designers and data engineers, because we've got to provide good information, we've got to provide good data, but at the same time, we got to provide good layouts to where the user who is utilizing the Power BI report is visualizing that report as if it is a website that they would be having access to. Of course, the Power BI report is not a website. It can be integrated into a website, but it is not a website. But the common user that's using the Power BI report, they don't know. This is just the look and feel that they're getting is that of a website. So we have to make them feel as good as they can, as comfortable as they can in utilizing the report as possible, and not make it seem as something that it is a brand new entity that they are utilizing within their company. We want them to have the same feel as if they were working with a website. So what we're doing here is we are trying to give that appeal, give that appearance of a website, but at the same time allowing them to be able to select from the drop-down list, as we have from the not necessarily drop-down list, from the slicer list as we have. It's gonna be a little challenging. It's gonna be a little challenging. I'll be totally honest with you with what we're trying to do here. Not necessarily too challenging with creating a Power BI report, but we've got 5 slices, 5 drop-down, 5 list slicers as opposed to 4, and we've got to make this look as visually appealing as possible without making it seem as the page itself is so jumbled up. So just trying to line the slicers up edgewise to where all of the items in each one of the lists are vertical at this point, so that it seems as if it's one particular list as opposed to having 3 lists. And now we have and that's in one column, and then the other column we're trying to do the same thing, setting the segment slicer and this status slicer to the point to where it appears that they are all one on one column, as opposed to having 2 slicers in a column. It's going to be a little challenging, but that's what we do as Power BI developers, is come up with the best graphic design as possible. Here we are now aligning, or attempting to align, the pie chart and the donut chart. Now, another thing that I don't try to do is I try not to have a donut chart and a pie chart to be either side by side horizontally or side by side vertically. Reason being, they're 2 rounded visualizations. In this particular case, I'm not exactly sure how we are going to finish this report and still have the visualizations of the pie chart and of the donut chart. I also don't like to do this. I don't like to do that as well with the bar chart and the column chart. I try not to have the bar chart and the column chart side by side horizontally or side by side vertically. So given that we've got a bar chart in this particular report, we have a column chart in this particular report, we have a pie chart, and we have a donut chart. There is a way I can see right now to where we could create the visuals to where, let's say we have the bar chart on one side, the pie chart on the pie chart is going to be, or could be, beside the bar chart horizontally, and then the donut chart could be below the bar chart vertically, and then the column chart on the side of the donut chart horizontally and below the pie chart vertically, which would then not have to have the bar chart and the column chart side by side or horizontal, and not have to have the pie chart and the donut chart side by side horizontally or vertically. But we'll work through that. We're quite a ways away from completing this project right now or completing this report, but we'll work through that. Now, as I say, completing the project, I want to clarify again. I want to be as clear as possible. This is a project or Power BI report that we are creating as a simulated Power BI report, creating a Power BI report for a company similar to a banking or financial services company, but it is not any company in specific. The company that we're using as a simulation is Citi Group, but this is not a Citi Group project. So do not attempt to try to take this data from what we're creating here. So do not try to take the data that we're creating here and believe that it is actually Citi data. None of this data that we're using is actually Citi data. None of this data that we're using is actually Citi data. None of these visualizations that we're using are visualizations that were requested by Citi. That there is data that we're going to be using, and that data is going to be the stock data. That's going to be the stock data that we're bringing in from Yahoo Finance. We're going to be bringing that data in. And it is actual 365 the historical data for 365 days, or the 1 year data for Citi. We're going to be using that data, but again, that data is not to be considered in any way a reason for you to go out and purchase Citi stock or to sell Citi stock, or be considered to be any type of consultation when it comes to stock information. It is simply a simulation that we're using to build out the Power BI report for a financial services company or a company, a bank within the financial services industry. So here we are still moving we're moving along. We've got a card set up. We've got one card that is counting customers. We've got another card that's counting loans. And as you can see, we've got 1,000 customers and we have 40 loans. Now, you can use your imagination to determine, to say that this is a representation of a bigger financial services or banking company, or you can say that it is smaller. For instance, we have 1,000 customers. You can pretend that that's 1,000 times 10, and the loans would be 40 times 10. Doesn't matter. This is just a way that we are going to be using this, a way that we're going to be creating information for building out this Power BI report. Now, as you saw, I have several logos that I've used before, and I'm going to be bringing these logos in. The reason why I bring the logos into the Power BI report is because when you're building the Power BI report, the one thing that I think is very important to a company is that you include their logo in the Power BI report. You should always include a company's logo inside of a Power BI report unless that company has specifically asked you not to do so. And the reason why they would probably ask you not to do so is because they may want to utilize that space as real estate for other visualizations. But bringing in a logo is not going to take up that much of, it's not going to take up too much space to where it really should be considered to be have an effect on the actual Power BI report. So in this particular case, I'm bringing in the Citi logo. Now we are getting more of a Citi feel. I went and grabbed some colors that I think are very complementary to Citi and its color scheme. Now, another thing, in addition to bringing in a company's logo, you should also consult with your business analyst or your whatever person you are working with within that organization to see what are the different colors that organization uses. That's very important. Many organizations have color palettes that they use for color schemes that they use within color palettes for their organization. So you want to make your Power BI report look as close to the company that you're working with, the company that you're working for, whom you're contracting for, however that may go, whomever that may be, whatever you may call them, you want to use a color scheme as close to what that company uses. And that's just a matter of asking them for their marketing literature to determine what colors you should be using. Because as you can see on our pie chart, we've got at least 3 colors on the pie chart that should be a complement to the colors that the company uses. We have at least 4 or 5 colors within the donut chart where those colors should be complementary colors to the colors that the organization uses. 1, 2, 3, 4 colors at least within the donut chart. So we have at least 4 different colors that we should be looking at when we're adding colors to our color scheme. Now, you've got your background color, so the question then is, do you want to use white as your background color, or do you want to use one of the complementary colors for the company as your background color? If you use white, you're probably okay. If you're going to use any other color, it probably needs to be one of the complementary colors that the company uses for their particular organization. Now, again, in addition to the color scheme for the graphic design, it is important to set the real estate, to set the visualizations in a manner in which it is aesthetically pleasing to the end user, right? So that comes back into play, brings back into play us as Power BI developers playing the role as graphic designers in addition to data engineers when it comes to building out the report. Because as we can see here, what we're going through now is we are going through whether or not we need to just have one column of all of the slices that have a list. So now what we're doing is we are now just trying to put all the slicers in one column so that we can control the real estate, be able to add more visualizations to the real estate, and not have 2 columns for the slicers. And then at the same time, which order should these slices be in? Because all of these slices are not all pertaining to the same information. Some of the slices are referring to business banking. Other parts of other slices are referring to personal business or personal banking. So do we want to put the personal banking slices together and the business banking slices together, or do we want to just place the slices as needed? Now, what I'm doing here is I'm bringing in an additional table that we didn't bring in initially, and that table is the stock table. We did not bring the stock table in the initial initially when we were working in the model view. So in order for us to work with the stock information, we've got to bring that stock table in. So I just brought that stock table in. Looks like we didn't bring the transaction or connect the transaction information either. And it appears that that transaction table is going to be related to the tables that have account ID. Looks like it does not have a customer ID. So we will want to find the account ID for the transaction information, and for the stock data. Let's see, we are going to we need to make sure we have all the information. So for the stock data, we need to create a calendar table. So we're going to create a calendar table, and of course for the calendar table, the reason why we're creating a calendar table for the stock information is for the stock table is because we need to be able to build a relationship between the stock table and other tables. And the table that's going to be the table that all of the other tables would be able to link to, relate to, would be tables that have dates. So we can take the calendar table and we can build a relationship between calendar table and the other tables that have dates, and the calendar table and the stock table, because the stock table has dates as well. Remember, we went back 365 days of a calendar year, which is giving us actual date information. So we are going to build a relationship between the tables that have date and a relationship between the account ID column and the transaction table with the account ID table. So we're here, we're just trying to make sure, everything is pretty. Normally I would make these tables a little smaller, but in this particular case, that's not the case. I'm just going to keep it the same, but try to keep it as organized as possible and with aesthetically pleasing as possible. And here we have calendar, and we have calendar date, and we're going to connect that to the CVS stock, the Citi stock date. So we have the calendar table related to the stock table by date, and it is a one-to-many relationship. Now we are going to connect the calendar table to the loans table, and it is a one-to-many relationship. Then we are going to connect the, let's see here. We've got an issue here with the calendar table and the loans table. So let's see if we take calendar table and join date to date, and we have a one-to-many relationship, but we are getting an issue here as well. So let's see if we take the date table and we connect it to the open date, and we say, hey, we've got we still have a interesting situation going on. So we take the credit score, and we have a one-to-many relationship, but we're still getting an error. So even though the dates from the calendar is giving us one-to-many relationships, we're getting errors to the other tables. So we're going to remove the date from the loans table and go to the center of the star, which at the center of the star schema is going to be the customers table, and we're going to build that relationship on join date. Now, given that customers is related to loans by customer ID, it's related to credit scores by customer ID, it's related to accounts by customer ID, it's related to customer feedback by customer ID, and all of those guys have dates. That interaction between the calendar table and the date table, the calendar table, and those other tables should be good now, because customers is already building out the relationship for those tables. Just trying to now just get more aesthetic look here, understanding that is customers is at the center of the star schema. So we've got this calendar table that we created using a measure, and now we are able to now we're just going in and reviewing some of the information here in the data view. So back over in the report view, what we are going to do now is we are working on the real estate. And again, what does that mean, T? That means that we are trying to we're trying to place these visualizations in on the page so that it is aesthetically pleasing. It's nothing like having a Power BI report that has good information, but nobody really wants to log on to it because it's it's not doing something for me. It's nothing that's really there. It's there, but it's something wrong. And that something wrong is that you will have visualizations that are just not set accordingly to where it just feels good to look at on the page. So here what we're doing is we're bringing in a couple extra cards. We brought in our calendar table. We brought in our stock table. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start bringing in our stock information. So we've got our open, our high, and our low. Now, of course, this information, as far as the open, the high, and the low, is not when it has 0.53 as an open, and high is 16.9 and low is 16.5. Of course, in the close is 16.7. So, of course, that is not exactly how we want that number to be. So we're going to format those numbers to show averages, because the actual price is not a sum of, it's actually the average of the prices is what the actual number is. And when we select that particular day, it gives us the average for that day, which actually gives us the true number, which is the open, the low, and the close on those particular days. As I come back over, I'm going to go over here and look at the look at the stock information, and I see that the open. I see that the high is a decimal value, the low is a decimal value, but the open is a text value. So we need to change that open to be a decimal value. The adjusted close is a decimal value. Adjusted the volume is a decimal value. But we need to change this from a text value to a decimal value. Reason being, you cannot add text. So we need to make that a text value. And the reason that popped out over here when I was looking here at the open, and it was saying first open, which let me know that it didn't give me an aggregation. It was telling me that it was the first one used. But bottom line, end of the day, we just had to change that text value to a decimal value. Now we went back and we used the average as opposed, well, it's actually showing min right now. I'm not sure we want to keep that at min. Min is basically the minimum value. I think we may want to make that average, but we can get all that. We can get that figured out. But at least now we're getting an aggregation. So the open is 54.08. The average is 67.68. The low is 66.08, and the close is 66.89. Changing the actual value sizes so that we can get a little bit more real estate here on the page. As you can see, those background boxes that the values are in are relatively big. We want to make that so that we could utilize more real estate. So I went back in and I put a title in the open in the open box. So we're going to put a title in the high box. We're going to call it high. We're going to remove that label, which is average of high, just as we did for open. We're going to take out the average of low label, and we're just going to give that a title of low. We're going to change the value sizes as well to match the values of the open and the high. We're going to do the same thing for the close. We're going to change the value size for the close, and we're going to give it a title of close as opposed to average close. Making that box just a little bit smaller so that we can have more space. We're going to reduce that, or we're going to change that title to close. We're going to reduce that value size to the same value size as the open, high, and low. And then we are going to remove that category label from the bottom of that particular box. And it's going to give us just a little bit better feel and a little bit better look. So now we're getting somewhere. The aesthetics of this is looking a little bit better now. It's looking just a little bit better. Let's see here. Now, let's look at the entire page. Let's see what's going on here. And what we did on this report is we gave it a little bit more height. Again, we've got a lot more data in the data for a banking and financial services company than we have on previous reports. So what I did in this particular report was I added a little bit more space on the height so that we could include a little bit more data. Again, I like to try to use 6 to 8 visuals. In this particular case, we are already using, including the logo being a visual. We've got the logo, we've got 3, 4, 5, 6 cards. We've got, I think 5 slicers here. So that's 11 already. We've got the donut chart and the pie chart. We've got a column chart and a bar chart. So we had about 15, we got a table, we had about 16 visuals. Now, I normally say 6 to 8 visualizations on a report. I am violating all of that right now. We will probably get to the point to where maybe we won't have as many visualizations, hopefully. I don't know, but if it looks good, we're gonna rock with it. If it doesn't look good, we're not gonna rock with it. But there's a lot of data when it comes to banking and financial services businesses that they like to see, and we like to try to create our Power BI reports at a level to where they're accustomed to seeing the data. It's going to be a little tricky because it's a lot of information, and we're going to have to create this thing to where it's visually appealing and it's not information just stacked on top of each other, and the page is not jumbled up. So, this is going to be a challenge, but that's what we do as Power BI developers. We accept all challenges. Okay, so now we are trying to see where is going to be the best location on the page for these drop-down lists. Again, it's challenging because we have so much data on this page: region, segment, and loan type. Now we are getting to the point to where we're trying to keep the business banking separate, or at least separated from the personal banking. So we get that region is probably going to be more so business banking. But of course, you do have you could have some personal banking going on in the region. Personal, you are definitely going to have, they're going to have the agencies, the Equifax, Experian, and TransUnions. They're going to have score ranges, and they're going to have loan types. Now, commercial businesses are going to have loan types as well, but they're going to probably have more mortgage loan types than they could have some auto, but personal and student loans will fall under the personal banking, not the corporate banking. So auto and mortgage can fall into both. Corporate, retail, and wealth. Typically, corporate and retail are going to fall into personal banking, but personal wealth bankers, banking could fall into both. So as you can tell, banking in the financial services industries is going to be challenging. It's going to be challenging to make this thing make sense, but that's our job as Power BI developers. That's our job, to make this thing make sense. It's our job to make this thing as aesthetically pleasing as possible. And, currently as we see it, we are still kind of struggling, trying to get it to where we need it to be. Looking up at that top right-hand corner where you got all the list slicers information, that's a lot of information. It's a lot going on here. And that's definitely not something that I think is something that we are going to stick with to the end. We're having all of these not drop down, but list slicers setting here at the end. So that's what we're working with. And as Power BI developers, that's what we have to do. In addition to being good data engineers, being good developers, we've got to be good graphic designers. We don't have anybody to sit down with us and say, hey, this visual should be here and that visual should be there. And most times we don't even, the companies that we're contracting for or contracting with, they don't even tell us what visuals they even want. So we even have to go out here and determine, what do we think is going to be the best visuals for this particular entity. Now, as we're moving through the project, that owner is going to tell you, hey, don't necessarily want this visual, but let's rock with this visual, or can we do this? It's going to give us some better idea. In this particular case here, not only did I do something different, but I brought in additional visualization, that visualization being a gauge visual. The reason why I brought in the gauge visual here is because I was like, hey, rather than using the cards for the high, low, and high, the open, low, close, and high for the stock visual, in order to save some space, why not bring in a gauge? Why not bring in a gauge in order to show the stock information? So in this particular gauge visual, I said, okay, cool. Let's bring in the gauge. Let's use the stock information, and we're going to use the low, the high, and the open value for the gauge visual. And for the gauge visual, in order to determine when we're talking about the open, low, and high, we're going to bring in a date slider. So what I do, I brought in another visualization. So I removed 3 visuals in order to bring in 2 visuals. But I get some idea that this could be maybe not a better look, but a different look than some of the visuals that I've done in the past, some of the reports that I've done in the past, where I've just kept the card visual and use the cards to show the low, the high, and the close. Did have a date, and I normally bring a date slider in for the stock visualizations. But, I think this is a little different for a gauge. It's a little different for a gauge. And it's also a little different use of a gauge. Typically, gauges do measure the minimum, the high, and the target values of a particular value, or a particular of something in particular. But in this case, I was like, this could be pretty cool to use a gauge for the stock information. Again, the challenge is the real estate. How do we place all of this information on the page. The challenge here is going to be the real estate, managing the real estate, making sure that the visuals are not clunky, making sure that they're not all jumbled up into one particular area. As you can see here, for me, it's a little bit more challenging in this particular case than in other classes, other videos, trying to make sure we've got a good presentation. But we're going to get there. We're not going to quit until we get there. That's the one thing we're not going to do. We're not going to quit until we get there. So here what we're doing is we've got a little bit more space to work with the gauge visual now by bringing down the pie chart and the donut chart, keeping the date sliders somewhere close to the gauge visual. And my thought here is if we bring the slicer, the region slicer over and place it over another visual, rather than doing the list, maybe we go with the drop down slicer. So here we go. We are going to let's see here. So as we are building out the layout, the real estate piece here for this Power BI report, now we're coming into play as to determining what we really want to do with this the slicer layouts. Of course, like I said before, we've got several slicers with list values, and trying to place these in a manner in which they will not cause too much jumbled, I'm gonna say jumbolization, but I don't think that's a word. We're trying to line the slices up to where we could get a good aesthetic view for the real estate on the report itself, in addition to lining up the additional visualizations. So as we see here, the visuals that we have going across the top of the report, which are the regions, the region and segment slicers, and the customer card, along with the loans card, with the logo and the loan type on the first row. It's coming. It's starting to look. It's starting to come in a little better now. Starting to get some feel for how this report layout is actually going to have a good effect, a good look. With the column chart and the bar chart on the third row, keeping the table visual at the bottom. Again, I don't normally keep table visuals, because the reason why I don't normally keep the table visuals is because there's so much data in a table that you have to do you're doing a lot of scrolling, whether it be up and down. Well, typically I would only create a table, not only, but typically I like to create a table that scrolls vertically up and down and not scroll horizontally, because scrolling horizontally is really not a natural movement for, let's just say, a website, I guess. So I would try to keep the table to the point to where you're only scrolling vertically, so you're not scrolling sideways. And even the entire report, I would prefer for the report to scroll vertically and not scroll horizontally. That's just something that I like to do, not necessarily something that you have to do. It's just a rule of thumb that I keep for myself on reports that I create. Let's see here. Now, we are getting pretty good. I think we got pretty good real estate here. I think the locations of the cards is turning out pretty good. Now what I want to do is format the actual canvas itself, and let's see, I've got a color that I want to use for the canvas. Let's see here. General title. We're going to change the title here to just be score by agency. So we're moving more so into formatting now. I have region, segment, customers, loans. I think I feel pretty good about the visualizations that we're using. As I said before, I like to go with between 6 and 8 visuals, but across the top row, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 visuals, 6 visuals. And then on the second row, including the gauge visual, there's 2, there's not necessarily 2, there's the date slider and the gauge visual. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5 going across the second row. And then the third row, we've got 2, 3, 4. So that's 9, 6, 15. And then the table visuals at the bottom, there's 16 visuals on this report. The goal was try to get it to where it's not so jumbled up visualization wise, to the point to where, you're trying to see, why or how you've got all these different visuals on the page. The slicer visuals to the right, to the far right, the loan type status, score by agency, score by range. Those slicers with the list, it's just going to be a matter of spacing those guys out. So that's what we've done here is space those guys out with a vertical distribution. The slicers at the top, along with the cards, we have created a horizontal distribution so that they would distribute horizontally, basically just meaning that distributing horizontally, that the visualizations would have the same distance apart from each other, and the visualizations to the right, the slicer list visuals, they will have the same distance apart vertically. It's just an aesthetic deal. Now what I am trying to do here is see if I want to make the border a specific color on this particular visual. If so, I would probably make all of the borders the same color. But right now I'm just testing to see if I want to make the borders a specific color. Of course, I like to go with the 10 point round when it comes to the rounding out the visuals. I kind of like the border. It's a little thin. It's a little thin. Let's see, general effects. The color is white. If we made it blue, the visual border, let's make it white. Let's make the rounded corners a 10, and let's make the width a 3. we're going to, so with that said, now I think in order to be consistent, we probably want to make all the backgrounds that same blue background color. We want to make all of the borders to be white with that 10-point round and that 3-pixel, a 10-pixel round and a 3-pixel width for the border. Just to be consistent, I like to have consistency within the Power BI report. Again, what we like to do here is we try to make this thing as close to what would look like a page in a website as opposed to just some random report that we're creating that has some digital features. So now we are just simply, I feel real good about the actual visualizations on the report. Now it's a matter of making it look good, formatting wise. So that's what we're doing. We tested one of the visuals initially. I believe it was the score by agency visual that we tested initially. And we said, hey, okay, let's make the background color this particular blue. I forgot the hex color, but we made it that color blue. And then we went in and we made the borders white, 3 pixels wide, 10 pixel round. And now what we're doing is we're going into each one of the visualizations, and we are going to do the same thing with each one of the visualizations. Again, that is simply just to get some consistency. We may make some changes here a little later just for some formatting and some graphic effect type joints. But right now, we're trying to get the entire page to be the same color. In order to get the entire page the same color, we have to change the background color of the visual, because you have to remember we made the canvas color a certain color, which is the blue that we're working with. But when we brought a visual in, the visual does not automatically adapt to the color of the canvas settings background or the canvas setting color. So we have to go in and make each individual visualization the same color as the background in order to get at the same color as the settings, in order for it to blend in as if it is all one color. So what I'm saying here is, if we have 16 visualizations on the page, even though it appears that the entire page is this hex color blue that we're using, it actually is not. It actually is not. The actual color of each individual visualization is really white, right? It's really white. And then we have to come in and we are giving it that effect. So that's kind of what I was saying before. You have to become not only a data engineer or a Power BI developer, you also have to become a graphic designer in order to get that look and feel for what you're looking for when it comes to the actual report. Again, the color that I use, the blue that I use, is a blue that I found to be complementary to the city colors and city logo, but this is not actually the actual color, the actual official blue color for city. It's just a color that I chose as a color that was pretty close to what I believe would be complementary for the city logo. Now, with that said, when you are speaking with the individuals that you will be developing your reports for, that is one of the things that you need to know, that you need to ask that question. What colors can I use? What is your main colors, your primary colors? What are your complementary colors or your supplementary colors? Whatever the case may be, whatever the question is, how you ask it, you need to know the colors that are acceptable of the organization. I have been on projects before and didn't ask that question, didn't ask what colors do you use, and thought I was building out a heck of a Power BI report. And come to find out, even with all of the fancy measures and calculated columns that I added to the report for the data engineering piece, the first thing that the team on the other side stated was, hey, these are not our colors. You know, what color? And they were very specific. They would say, hey, this is not our color blue, right? Let's just say it's ABC Company. This is not ABC Company blue, right? This is not ABC Company red. Even though ABC Company blue or ABC Company red is not an official color, they have an official color. And basically at the end of the day, you will be able to pull it off of a hex color wheel. They may call ABC color blue hashtag HF0218 if that's a blue. I'm not sure, but I'm just using that as an example. They may call it hex color blue. They may call it ABC Company blue, but it really is a specific color on the color wheel with a hex color. So you know you want to get that. If they say, hey, our color is blue, no, what is the hex color? Give me your hex colors. What's your primary hex color? What's your complementary hex color? That's information you need to know, because it could be the difference in you creating a solid project in the very beginning and maybe creating a 50% solid project in the very beginning and then having to go back and make color changes. You can also ask in the same respect, you know, what type of visualizations do you like to see? Do you like to see donut charts? Do you like to see pie charts? Do you like to see clustered column charts? Do you like to see clustered bar charts? Do you like to see tree maps? Many organizations have certain visualizations that they like to use. And as you scroll through their website, you will see some of the different types of visualizations they like. If you scroll through the website and they've got a donut chart or a pie chart on that website, I would include a donut chart or a pie chart, because that's something that they like to see. That's something they're accustomed to. They may not use gauges, so I wouldn't include the gauge. But if you see a gauge on the website, I would use a gauge on the Power BI report. If you see a bar chart or a clustered column chart on the website, I would use a bar chart or a column chart on the report, because that's what they're accustomed to using. Just as with the slicer with the list, they may like to use slicers with lists. They might like to use slicers with drop downs. Those are things you need to know. If you see that they use rounded corners on their website, they probably like rounded corners. You probably want to put rounded corners on the Power BI report. If you see drop shadows in the website, you probably want to use drop shadows if you see drop shadows in the website, you probably want to add drop shadows somewhere in the Power BI report. You get the gist. The reason why you do the research is not necessarily just for reading, but for visual aesthetics, so that you can get some idea of how these guys would like to see their Power BI report. The more you can get from research, the more you can get from the initial conversations, the better off you're going to be in the end of less work that you're going to have to either redo or go back, recreate, or just plainly delete and start over, because you didn't create a report, the style of report that they're accustomed to seeing. So here we are still going through this report, and we are changing the backgrounds to the final visualizations on the page, adding the white border to the final visualizations on the page, and adding the rounded corners to the final visualizations on the page. So as we can see here, we have now created a Power BI report with all of the visuals except for the table visual having the background. And you know, I set this one for last for a reason, not just because it was at the bottom of the page, but because here on the table visual, yes, we are going to make the background color blue. So as we see here now, the background color is blue, but we have rows and alternating rows. So we've got to come in and we've got to change the colors of the rows and the alternating rows. So we got the visual, and we see that the text color is black, the background color is white, the alternating text color is black, and the alternating background color is gray. We don't want any gray background color. We want the entire piece to be this same color blue. And now we see, in addition to the background color being blue, the alternating background color being blue, we've got to go in and change the column header so that it would be blue as well. Again, at the end of the day, the average person that's looking at, the average user that's looking at this report, they're not going to understand that the colors of the table had background colors of white and then alternating color being gray. But what we do know that, so we've got to come in and we've got to make those changes. And the average eye, the average person that's viewing the report is not understanding that the column header is a specific color as well. So we've got to come in and we've got to make the changes to the column header. Now we've made a change to the column header, and we see that all of the background is blue. Now, another thing when you're looking at slicers and drop downs is when you've got a drop down, the colors, the standard color I believe is black, the headers are white, the background color could blend into the actual report, so we may need to make some changes there. So right now, let's go in, let's look at the values for, let's see, for the region drop down slicer. As we are wrapping up this Power BI report, I want to ask you to do me a favor. Go over to Amazon and pick up my book, The 6-Figure Cheat Code, How to Make Money in Tech. So here's the deal, just a real quick, short synopsis of what the book is about. For those of you who are interested in getting into tech, you may be interested in getting into Power BI, you may not be interested in getting into Power BI, but you are interested in getting into tech, and you're not sure as to if you are ready to get into tech, or if you're really ready to embark upon something that you really have never gone to school for. And what I'm here to let you know is you don't have to go to school in order to get into tech. There are some things that you can do. There are some boot camps such as Power of the BI that you can take. I would like for you to take Power of the BI that you can register for over at powerofthebi.com, but you don't have to. There are many great boot camps that are out there. But the one thing that they all have in common is that when you take these boot camps, you're not necessarily sure if you're ready. You have imposter syndrome. You don't know what steps to take, what to do next once you've taken the course. And in my book, The 6-Figure Cheat Code, How to Make Money in Tech, I give you all of that information. I give you all that information within just a few pages of reading a very short book called The 6-Figure Cheat Code, How to Make Money in Tech. So if you don't mind, go over to Amazon, pick it up, read it, leave me a review on the Amazon website after you read it, and I am going to respond back to your positive review with a surprise. So with that said, again, go over to Amazon, pick up my book, The 6-Figure Cheat Code, How to Make Money in Tech, and like and subscribe to this channel. That really helps. Like and subscribe to this channel. Anyway, let's move back over into the video and let's finish up this Power BI report that we are creating for banking and the financial services industry. So we are now wrapping up this, we're wrapping up this particular video on Power of the BI, Power Money Mondays, using a simulated simulated data set that we've created, a Power BI report for with our clone company being the Citi Group. So we have gone through and we have formatted the majority of this Power BI report. Now we are coming back through and we're just adding just some enhanced touches. We're just drop shadowing adding drop shadow to the report, to the visualizations in the report. We may add drop shadow to the entire report. We may not drop shadow to the entire report. Really, I don't think that drop shadow is really meant to be added to an entire Power BI report. It's just to give that added effect. And as you can see, when I add the drop shadow to the different visualizations, it gives it a little bit more. Man, let me drink some water. That kind of hurt. Excuse me. But anyway, when I add that drop shadow to the report, it gives it a little bit more, right? So, that's kind of what I'm looking to see now. I'm trying to see, which visualizations will the drop shadow work best for? Where do we get the biggest bang, the biggest, man, excuse me. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, just trying to see which visualizations we get the biggest drop shadow, get the biggest for the drop shadow. And as I look, I see we may or may not need to have borders on all of the visuals because, it kind of gives us a little different effect. We're adding drop shadows, but my question then is, looking at the visuals to the right, the loan type, the status, the score agency, the score range, all of those visuals don't have the drop shadow. And since they don't have drop shadow, I'm kind of digging how that look and feel. But right now, what I'm also doing is I'm reducing the size, reducing the value size of the slicer values so that they don't be so big to where they don't all fit within the within the actual visualization itself. Another thing we don't have here is, as I said before, there are colors that you may want to have added to your report. And looking here at the different slicer colors, I have several colors that I have found to be complementary colors to this, I'm not gonna call it teal, but this sky bluish color that I'm saying is complementary to the Citi logo. So what I'm doing is I am going to the donut visual and I am changing those colors that are already in the donut visual to the colors that I found to be complementary. The reason why I started with the donut visual is because the donut visual has four colors associated with it, which is has the most number of colors of all of the visualizations. The other visualizations, the gauge has 2 colors, the pie chart has 1 color, and of course, the bar chart and the column chart both have 1 color. So what I wanted to do was start with the pie chart, and not the pie chart, but the donut chart, since it has the most colors. So then I would be using all of the same colors throughout the report. I changed that black color, even though that black was considered to be complementary, and I guess black may be complementary to most colors. But I changed the black color because it seemed a little spooky, a little dark, right? So I changed that color. I took that black color out. So as you'll see now, all of the colors that are on the visualization will all have the same. There will be 4 colors that we're using outside of the red that's in the Citi logo. But of course, I didn't make the change to the Citi logo, and I probably could have used that red to make it blend in a little bit better. But sometimes when you use red is considered to be negative. or negative values. Of course, we probably could tell, given that it's in the Citi logo, that it was just added to fit the color scheme. But you know, whatever. If you want to make it red, you can. If you want to use red within the visualizations, you can. Otherwise, you can grab the same colors that I use. You can grab them out of the class portal. They're in there. Now, if I come down and I look at the bar chart, I've got colors. I've got colors of the text, which I could make all the different colors white in order to be seen a little bit better, or I could keep the text that same grayish color. It just depends on what your preference is. At this point, we're just formatting, and it's a matter of, you know, if you want to change those colors, you can, or not. You don't have to. You can. It's really personal preference at this point of what you think is best on the formatting. Now, when it comes to you on the job, it could be, you know, it could be the preference of the organization. The organization could say, hey, on drop-down slicers, we like to see a white background for the values with a drop-down value, having a font size of no more than 8 or 9. Even with the table, you know, they could say, hey, we want values to be white. We want the column header colors to be yellow, whatever the case may be. So now with this formatting piece, I am taking out the border on score agency and score range, just to have a different look, a different visual look. So some visuals have drop shadows, some visuals don't have drop shadows, some visuals have borders, some visuals have no borders, some visuals have drop shadows, have borders and no visuals. Borders and drop shadows. Some have no borders and no drop shadow. It's just a different look. It kind of tricks out a little bit the look of the report. So that is our presentation. That is our video today on Power Money Mondays. And I'm not going to hold you too much longer. But again, remember to like and subscribe to this channel. And thank you for joining in. And I look forward to seeing you win again in the next video.